many of you know that there has been an ongoing he said, she said spat between Johnny Depp and his, I guess, ex-wife at this point. I can't remember if their divorce is finalized or not, but let's say ex-wife, Amber Heard. Now, for the better part of 2 years, I have never talked about, I really don't talk about this issue. And I would constantly get bombarded with, why aren't you talking about Johnny Depp? Why aren't you talking about Amber Heard? Why aren't you? And I would always say the same thing because I wasn't there. I don't know what happened. I don't know what's going on. I know there's court cases going on. So I'm just going to sit and wait to see what the court case, because I don't know. I'm a little
you were once involved in the legal profession, were you not, John?
I was. I did work in law for a while. And Rob, I don't know if you know this, but I'm a little bit dumb. That's fine. I've come to accept that. I live with that. It's my daily challenge. I'm a little bit dumb, but I'm not so dumb that I would form opinions about what's going on in legal cases when I'm not seeing or really hearing 95% of the evidence or the testimony being given. I'm a little dumb, but I'm not that dumb. And so as this whole thing's been going on, my whole personal attitude has been, look, if what Johnny, you guys remember I said this over a year ago, if what Johnny Depp is being accused of doing, if he did that, screw him. And if Amber Heard's making it up, screw her. But I'm not there, so I don't know. I'm just going to sit back and let the court do its thing and see what happened. Now, one of the twists and turns of all this is Johnny Depp took the newspaper The Sun, which published a full article about the Amber Heard situation, where Amber Heard outlined, I think, 14 occasions of abuse that she alleges Johnny Depp made against her. And The Sun used the term in their article famously that Johnny Depp was a wife beater. And they used that term in there as well. Johnny Depp then started a civil case, a libel case against The Sun in British courts. Now that I believe started in June. I think that court case started in June, and it has now come to a conclusion. And listen, guys, it's actually pretty remarkable. And we're going to walk through why, from a legal point of view, why this all looks actually really, really bad for Johnny Depp. Here we go. So to start things off here, the court case has finalized and Johnny Depp has lost the case. Johnny Depp's case, he was the plaintiff in this against The Sun for their story that they ran about, all the allegations that Amber Heard made and using the term white beaver and all that kind of stuff. And the court has found in favor of the defendants. They have found against Johnny Depp in that. Now, in and of itself, that's interesting. But it becomes more astonishing to me when you actually start digging into it. And here's why this is actually kind of damning for Johnny Depp. All right. Follow me here as we jump into the John Campea classroom for a second, if you will.
Uh-oh.
Well, yeah, if you don't mind, we're just going to take a moment here and jump into the John Campea classroom. All right. Because now this might seem boring on its surface, guys, but follow me here. This is actually very important stuff and we'll get to why. Okay. There's a few things we need to take into consideration when understanding this decision against Johnny Depp in the court, okay? Let's start with this. There are two separate things known as the burden of proof and the standard of proof. These are two different but extremely important things, and you'll see why in just a second. First off is burden of proof. Burden of proof basically means this. Which of the two parties has to prove the case? So let's say, for example, Rob, let's say I take you, Rob, to court and I'm suing you for stealing my cookies. You stole my cookies. All right. So I take you to court. In this case, I'm the one bringing the case. So I am the plaintiff and Rob is the defendant or the respondent, depending on the terminology. In court, the burden of proof lies with the accuser. In a criminal case, that means the burden of proof is on the government. In civil case, if I'm suing Rob for stealing my damn cookies, the burden of proof is on me. All that means is I'm the one who has to prove my case.
Right.
Rob doesn't have to prove he didn't steal my cookies. I have to prove that he did. Okay. So that's important to keep in mind. Keep this, analogy going here. So that's burden of proof. So in this case, Johnny Depp is taking The Sun to court. the burden is on him to prove that what they wrote in their article was not true. Okay? So the burden of proof here is on Johnny Depp. Now let's talk about the standard of proof. This is where it gets really interesting. The standard of proof means how much do you need to prove it? Like how convincing does your argument have to be? And this is where it becomes a difference between a criminal case and a civil case. All right? In a criminal case, you've heard the term said in all the legal movies and TV shows, beyond a reasonable doubt. Like, the prosecution has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt, or with 95 to 100% certainty, that that person is guilty. So if Rob and I were engaged in a criminal case of him stealing my cookies, the prosecution would have to prove from 95 to 100% certainty that this guy stole my cookies. However, in a civil case, that, defamation, libel, which is what this case was, in a civil case, Johnny Depp doesn't have to prove with 95 to 100% certainty. That's only in criminal cases. In a civil case, Johnny Depp has a much, much, much easier job. All Johnny Depp has to do, or the accuser in this case, is prove that it's likely that it happened, that it's likely true what he is accusing the defendant of. In other words, instead of needing to prove the case 100%, in a civil case, you really only got to prove it by 51%. You also, in this case, since it's a civil case, all I would have to do is make a judge go, yeah, I'm hearing the arguments, and it kind of sounds like John makes a point, Rob, so we're going to find in John's behalf, right? Now, Rob can say, but Your Honor, John ate his own cookies. I didn't steal them, but all I've got to do is convince a judge with 51% certainty, not 100% certainty, 51% certainty, just a likelihood that what I'm saying is true. Now, this is where it continues to be really, really interesting. Because normally in a civil case, if the court finds that the plaintiff doesn't have a case, what will normally happen is the judge will say, we're dismissing the case. The plaintiff has failed to meet the threshold of evidence, right? It's just basically simple. Like, look, it was the plaintiff's responsibility to prove the likelihood that what they're saying was right, and they didn't do that. Case dismissed. This is where the Johnny Depp situation gets really interesting. Because instead of just saying in their judgment that they didn't feel like Johnny Depp proved his case enough, they actually went so far as to say there is sufficient proof. We believe that it's sufficiently true that Johnny Depp did do all the things that Amber Heard is accusing him of. This comes to us from Deadline, who wrote the following. The Sun, that's the newspaper in question, was justified in its use of the phrase wife beater in a 2018 article about his relationship with ex-wife Amber Heard. The judge, Justice Andrew Nicole, decreed that the allegations were substantially true. So basically all the things after hearing months of testimony, months of evidence, months of arguments in court that you and I didn't see 95% of it. After hearing months of that, the judge decreed that those allegations that Amber Heard made were substantially true. In today's verdict, the 129-page court document concludes plainly that Mr. Depp did assault Miss Heard in reference to the multiple allegations of domestic violence that were presented during the trial, declaring that the great majority had been proved. The judge did not just come. This is why this verdict is actually a very, very bad look for Johnny Depp. The judge didn't just come out and say, the plaintiff in this case failed to meet the threshold of evidence. We find for the defendant. The judge actually went so far as to say, all the allegations against Depp, we believe are substantially true. After seeing the evidence, hearing the testimony, the accusations against Depp, and in this case, the relative facts to the case at hand were actually true. In other words, going back to Rob and me and our case of the missing cookies, it's not just the judge came back and said, John, we don't think you have enough evidence to convince us that Rob stole your cookies. The judge actually said, Campea, we know you ate your cookies yourself. I mean, that's basically what happened here. That's what happened here. The judge came out and said, Depp, you ate the cookies. This was Johnny Depp bringing the Sun to court. And instead of just dismissing it, the judge actually turned to Depp and said, actually, Mr. Depp, we find that the vast majority of the allegations against you are substantively true. This isn't a good look for Depp, like at all. Now, look, like most sane, rational people, I have sat back and completely kept an even field on this. I wasn't there. I don't know what Johnny Depp did or didn't do. I don't know what Amber Heard did or didn't do. I'm not in the courtroom. I'm not so stupid that I'm going, I saw on Reddit somebody said this, so now I know who is guilty. No, I'm not dumb enough to think that since I wasn't in court, I can form a hard opinion about this. So I've had no opinion. So when people have come at me saying, why aren't you coming out and condemning what Johnny Depp did? Because I don't know if Johnny Depp did what he's being accused of doing. Why aren't you coming out and condemning what Amber Heard did? Because I don't know if I'm not in the court. So for over a year, I have just not talked about it because I don't get into this TMZ BS. But now we have a ruling in the court. And now it raises the question about how is this going to affect the movies that do or don't get made. We're supposed to be having this Warner Brothers, Fantastic Beasts movie coming out that Johnny Depp's a part of. What does Warner Brothers do with this? Does Warner Brothers look at this court or do they not? And I'm not saying they should or they shouldn't. What I'm saying is now it raises a question. What do studios like a Warner Brothers or something that are currently contracted to work with Depp, does this court ruling give the studios, even if they want out of their deal with Depp, does this give them enough basis to break a contract? Does this represent a material enough thing that a court would say, yeah, Warner Brothers, you would be justified in breaking this contract? I mean, maybe they do, maybe they don't. Maybe Warner Brothers does want to separate with Johnny Depp. Maybe they don't. But I do believe that this ruling is going to have an impact on what does and does not happen as far as the movies go. Also, want to bring this up too. The New York Times was writing about this case as a result of the decision that came down. They put it this way. Johnny Depp on Monday lost his court case against a British newspaper that called him a wife beater and claimed there was overwhelming evidence that he had assaulted the actress Amber Heard repeatedly during their marriage. Mr. Depp's assaults included headbutting Miss Heard, repeatedly hitting her and tearing out clumps of her hair, wrote Andrew Nicole, that's the judge, the British judge who heard the case, in a ruling issued on Monday. In dismissing the case, he said that the defendants had shown what they published was substantially true. The assaults, said the judge, must have been terrifying, the judge wrote regarding incidents in March of 2015 in Australia, in which Miss Heard said that Mr. Depp assaulted her several times, including smashing a telephone beside her face. I accept that Mr. Depp put her in fear of her life, the judge wrote. The judge also acknowledged that the risk Miss Heard had taken in speaking up about the violence. I also accept that Miss Heard's allegations have had a negative effect on her career as an actor and activist, the judge said. So, what is clear here is that after seeing months of testimony, hearing months of evidence, and hearing all of the arguments, the court has ruled pretty definitively that they're saying the evidence points that Johnny Depp is guilty of the things that he did. Therefore, they dismiss this case. Rob, it's important to note that this was not a trial against Johnny Depp. That's important to keep in mind. I'm seeing some people writing that Johnny Depp has been found guilty. Johnny Depp wasn't on trial. Let's be very, very, very clear about that. Johnny Depp was not on trial. He was the one taking somebody else to court. The court found against him, and in an unusual move in their statements made it pretty clear that the court believed the evidence point to the fact that he was indeed the one responsible for everything. Again, I wasn't in court. I didn't see the months long of evidence and testimony and all that kind of stuff. So I can only speak to what it is the court decided. Rob, I believe this is a pretty bad look on Depp, the way this is kind of unfolded. I mean, it's one thing to have a libel case dismissed. That's fine. But what the judge is saying here actually looks pretty bad. What is your take on this ruling that came down, and how, if at all, do you think this is going to affect? Let's just talk specifically about the Fantastic Beasts movie. How, if at all, is this going to affect Johnny Depp's upcoming projects and long-term prospects? How do you see all this?
Well, look, I think this acrimonious split between the two of them, I think clearly
I love the way you put that.
I think, I think clearly there was fault on both sides, as we have heard and seen in various testimonies. This was clearly a very tempestuous relationship that, I've always said to people, you never know what's going on. The only people that can tell you what's really going on in a relationship are the people involved. It doesn't matter how well you know people. It doesn't matter unless you're privy to seeing it happen. It's really difficult to understand the dynamic between two people. And look, people make each other crazy. Now, by all accounts, Johnny Depp's the other women in his life, even people like Vanessa Paradis, have talked about what a wonderful man he is and what an attentive father he is. Sometimes you just end up with, you get in those relationships that make you crazy. And this is one of those things. And there's a lot of contributing factors. Now, I don't doubt what the judge found. I've loved Johnny Depp, but forget the fact that he's a movie star and I've always liked his work. Interpersonal relationships with people are dirty and they can be messy. And I think that in this case, I don't know if it's going to affect his career. It sounds to me like that she wasn't an angel either. And while this libel case he lost, it's going to be interesting to see, does that matter? It's not like it's a criminal case. It was a civil case. And he hasn't been accused of criminal behavior anywhere as far as I know. So while it's embarrassing, it certainly hurts his brand. And maybe his quote drops, Fantastic Beasts 3. If he was in negotiations to make a bit more money, they're going to be like, Johnny, how do we know you're going to, if we hire you to do this part again, I think instead of $10 million, we'll pay you 2.5. Make sure we don't have to be embarrassed in the press by you. But I mean, Johnny Depp is still Johnny Depp. And I don't think, look, it's not like he did something. I don't know. It's hard to say. It really is hard to say. It's a bad look for him. And it's not like anything that was revealed here is good. And especially in this day we're living in, John, in our post-Harvey Weinstein Me Too era, it's not a good look for anybody. And certainly not for Johnny Depp, certainly not for a beloved actor like Johnny Depp to know that Captain Jack Sparrow has now been publicly branded a wife beater by a judge. It's not good.
I think for a lot of people, this has dragged on for so long.
Yeah. This
Amber Heard, Johnny Depp thing. I honestly think for most people, it's going to be like, this is old news. And I don't know that this is going to affect a lot of people in that way.
Right.
But I'm wondering if you're Warner Brothers right now and you're reading a thing where a judge writes, there is overwhelming evidence Mr. Depp's assault included headbutting Miss Heard repeatedly, hitting her and tearing out clumps of her hair, and hitting her along the side of the face with the telephone, wrote the judge, Andrew Nicole. If you're Warner Brothers and you're reading a judge is saying this happened after looking at the evidence and all that kind of stuff. And again, I'm not there. I'm not passing judgment. I wasn't there.
Right.
But if you're Warner Brothers, if you're in that Warner Brothers executive offices this morning, Rob, and you're reading all this stuff coming in, what do you think the discussion is like in that Warner Brothers executive offices right now?
I think it's tough. I mean, I think it because if it's business as usual, you're going to have people that say, "Oh, do you condone this behavior?" And I don't think anybody does. But, again, in these, it's tough. I'm torn because I think anybody who's been in a relationship or multiple relationships over the course of their lifetime has been in a relationship that they understand the crazy that happens between two people. Sometimes it's the craziness that draws you to a relationship, and it's the craziness that ends a relationship. But this kind of abusive behavior it's hard to ignore. You can't ignore it. But the thing is it atypical? Is this something that always happens? Is this person a serial abuser? I'm justifying it, and I don't want to equivocate, because any kind of violence in any situation against another person is unacceptable in any way, shape, or form. So it's tough. I think Warner Brothers is going to have to take a good long look. But on the other hand, what's the box office going to be like? At the end of the day, yeah. It's very interesting the way our society now wants people to become pariahs, and the things that, what do they want Johnny Depp to do? Go to jail and do some hard time and come out, and then is he absolved of his sins? I don't understand. Even the people that do go to jail and serve their time are never absolved of their sins, even though our justice system would say that, once you've paid your debt to society, all is forgiven. But we don't do that. We brand people if they get out of jail. It doesn't matter. Felons can't vote. And it's a tough, man. It's tough. But this, not a good look. But gosh, I'm torn, John. If I try and put myself in the position of a Warner exec, what would you do? Like, let's say you and I are we're the executive. We're sitting in the executive room at Warner Brothers, where the executive dining room, and you and I sit down for lunch, and in the course of an hour, we have to decide Johnny Depp's fate and the fate of Fantastic Beasts 3. What would you do?
So, saying you're torn is an understatement. Because I think there's a couple of things to take in consideration, right? Okay, obviously, the big one on the table that's most prominent right now is the fact that a judge just said that they believe the evidence proves that Johnny Depp was hitting a woman in the head with a phone.
Yeah.
And pulling her hair out. All right. But if I can, again, I'm not in the court. I'm now in the Warner Brothers executive offices. I'm wondering, okay, as a person, how crazy was he? What's the word I'm looking for when you get triggered when somebody kind of causes you to do something? Were you not instigated to do it?
Induced?
Were you provoked?
Provoked, okay.
Provoked is the word I was looking for. Like, how provoked was he? Look, again, I agree with your interpretation, Rob. There is never an excuse for violence getting involved in a situation like that. But, and what's really interesting, here's what I'm doing if I'm Warner Brothers. All right, I've decided. This is what I'm doing if I'm Warner Brothers. That was one of two cases. There's another case coming up. This time it's going to be in the U.S., where Johnny Depp just tried to sue the paper that wrote all the story with all the details, and he lost. Lost monumentally, to the point that the judge even said, no, you did do these things that you're accused of. Now there's a second case now coming up in the U.S., where Johnny Depp is now, instead of going after the newspaper that wrote all the things that Amber Heard said, now he's going after Amber Heard herself in another civil case in the U.S. As a matter of fact, this is here. This is from the lawyer of there. Responding to today's verdict, Amber Heard's U.S. lawyer, Elaine Charlson Benhoft, told the Associated Press that the outcome of the U.K. trial was not a surprise, adding that very soon we will be presenting even more evidence in the U.S. So if I'm Warner Brothers right now, Rob, I think I am taking a little bit of a wait and see attitude of, okay, let's wait and see what happens with the U.S. case. Because there is a couple of possibilities here. Number one possibility is that Amber Heard's lawyers could petition the court right now with the findings of the UK case and say, we move for a dismissal of this case. And they may grant it or they may not. Maybe, possibility number two, they go through this case in the U.S. and it's the exact same outcome. The judge throws it out and says the proof shows that Johnny Depp is an abuser. Or possibility number 3 is that they go through the case and the judge decides, you know what? We do believe that Johnny Depp has presented enough evidence to show that Amber Heard is lying about him, and it goes that way. So if I'm Warner Brothers, I'm going to say, let's wait. Let's stay quiet. We stayed quiet with Ezra Miller. Let's stay quiet until the U.S. case happens. And then if options 1 or 2 happen, they throw the case out, or the exact same thing happens in the U.S. case that happened in the U.K. case, then we drop Johnny Depp. However, if the U.S. case happens and they find in favor of Johnny Depp, then we can move forward. I think if I'm Warner Brothers, I do that. What do you think about that? What do you think
I think that's probably a pretty. It's always. I think sometimes better. Look, you don't want to make snap judgments, and I'll say something too. Like when you hear these things, like Johnny Depp hit her in the head with a phone. Well, did he hit her in the head with a rotary? Those old rotary dial phones that you'd pick up, or a Motorola Razor? They're both phones. One of them's like a club. And the other thing is if your ex-wife jumps on you and is pulling your hair and screaming in your face and you're like, get off me, I mean, there's different degrees of that. So that's why we have first degree, second degree manslaughter, that kind of thing. I saying certain things, and we tend to in the media use blanket statements like this for effect. I just don't know what that means. And was this a one-time thing? Was because they were having these very physical fights or
they're
rows?
Saying it was 14. They're saying it was 14 different incidents.
Okay, 14 different incidents. I mean, I would be curious as to, again, what does that mean? I don't know. We'll see. I just, by all accounts, by the other women in Johnny Depp's life, this was not normal behavior for him. And I know that I think back into my own life, there was one relationship I had in particular that was very volatile, but I have to say, not from my end. And it was things that I was dealing with and mental issues that I wasn't aware of that were particularly difficult to deal with. And, it gets weird. Now I'm not blaming her. And I'm not blaming Johnny Depp. I think they were both probably culpable. And Johnny Depp, obviously he was drinking heavily, and he'll admit all those things too. I don't want to absolve. No one should ever be hitting anybody else ever, much less a woman. Period. I mean, no means no always, and you don't hit women. That's just the way you lead your life. But life is messy. And it's hard to say, but these findings, this judge seemed pretty convinced, pretty definitive findings.
Yeah, so, it'll be interesting to see what the American case now does. Again, like for me, I am shocked at how this verdict came out, how definitive it seemed to come out. So yeah, I'm going to stick with. I like the way when you asked me that. I think I'm going to stick with, from a personal point of view. If another court finds the exact same things that the British court did, then screw Johnny Depp. If they don't, and they say, no, we actually believe the evidence points the other way, then I think we got to keep a more open mind about it. But yeah, I think if I'm Warner Brothers, I'm going to wait and see what happens with the American case. Guys, the question is for you. What do you think would and should happen with upcoming movie cases? This is now no longer a he said, she said thing. We've got actually some court rulings now. What do you think is going to happen? Do you think Warner Brothers is going to move to separate themselves from Johnny Depp? Do you think Warner Brothers are going to take a wait and see attitude like I suggest they should to see how the American court case works out? What do you think will and should happen? Jump down into the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. And by the way, I decided to make that the topic of today's question of the day. And I asked just before the show started, I asked everybody, question of the day, with the court ruling that, according to evidence, the abuse accusations against Johnny Depp are substantially true, how do you think this will, not should, affect his career moving forward? 48% of you are saying what I said a little bit earlier, that a lot of people are going to say this is old news now, it won't affect him. 12% of you are saying his career is over. 41% are saying that this is going to affect him in the short term with a little bit of time away, and then he'll return. A little over 6,700 of you guys have already voted on that. I'm going to keep that poll up there for the rest of the day. So yeah, jump on down to the comment section, guys, and let us know what you guys think. All right, guys.